So changing pace slightly, today I wanted to take a look at the 2006 Korean eco-horror film, The Host. This is definitely a very enjoyable, very fun film. It's definitely one of those films if you do not care for your monster movies to be too serious, or if you actually appreciate some humorous writing in your characters, then this is definitely a very great film to go with. It's definitely very quirky in the way that it's written, as well as the way the actors play their characters. Some of the dialogue and events within the film are also extremely humorous, so it's one of those films which pretty much just starts off funny from the beginning to end, very subtle humor. So it's one of those things where I guess throughout the course of the film you gradually pick up on the humor. You may at first think, well, you know, this is kind of silly or kind of stupid, but you definitely really get a feel for the film as you progress through it, and as you get to know the characters and family members within the film. You definitely find yourself enjoying the film a lot more. You find yourself laughing with them as well as laughing at them, depending on the scenario, but definitely a very enjoyable film. The film stars Song Kang-ho, who has very quickly become one of my favorite male Korean actors. You may recognize him from films such as Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, Thirst. He's definitely done some very great film work. He actually is not a trained actor, but actually began his work in the theater and later moved into film. Host is directed by Bong Joon-ho and was actually a very anticipated film following the success from his previous film Memories of Murder, and was actually received with a very large Asian release and a very measly limited American release. The film did go on to become one of Korea's largest grossing films and win numerous awards as well. So the film does open with a member of the military ordering a reluctant scientist to pour over 200 bottles of contaminated formaldehyde down a sink, which unfortunately happens to drain into the Han River. This pretty much just sets up the film. Over the years, it is implied that people noticed strange creatures, either fish or mutated creatures, wildlife. And this film, once it finally does pick up and rolling, we open up on a park scene. We have several characters just enjoying their day, ordering meals, spending time, and we have this very large mutated salamander which leaps up out of the water and begins gobbling people. So it really doesn't wait too long to get into the action or the meat of the film. It pretty much just sets us up with our backstory, which is pretty much all we need, and runs. Which definitely very enjoyable, but it's a fairly basic plot, an extremely well-written film, but it's pretty much just action and comedy the rest of the way through. Park Gong-doo's daughter is kidnapped by the mutated salamander during this scene, pretty much just wraps her up in its tail and swims off with her. What we later realize is that the creature's creating somewhat of a backstock, sort of a refrigerator, if you will, for just meals later on or meals on the go. But the immediate assumption is that the girl had died, and during a mass wake scene during the film, in which the family does come together in order to mourn the loss of his daughter. So it is during this scene in which daughter Baiduna does return, and she returns with a bronze medal, just sort of as a token to offer to her lost niece. What we later realize is that Gong-doo wasn't the actual blood-related brother and sister within this family. He's actually been adopted by the grandfather character. We later realize one of the reasons why he's so doofy, or I guess slow-witted would be a more polite way to say it, is that he grew up a homeless child. He was extremely malnourished, survived primarily off of ramen, and this did not allow his body to develop properly. Hence the slow-wittedness, as well as the fact that he seems to suffer from somewhat of a form of narcolepsy, which causes him to just sleep at random occasions. And he's definitely a very interesting, very humorous character, and at times you can't help but feel sorry for him at just what a loss he is during certain situations. But this is actually one of my favorite scenes within the film, even though it's a wake and it's meant to be taken seriously. For some odd reason, the family gets into an argument, and somehow they all wind up on the ground. Some of them are wailing on the ground crying, as well as fighting each other, and it's just very weird, especially in a very public area. And certain other people within that wake start taking out video cameras or just taking photos of them. It's very humorous, and there are definitely various moments in which very odd things do happen along the lines of that, but it's my belief that this behavior, this initial behavior, is what caused them to be dubbed by the media as the idiot family. Which, yes, very rude, but to some degree they really do own up to it, and it was really hard for me not to laugh during that. But yes, they definitely are characters. So the reason why they have been dubbed by the media idiot family as well as later pursued is because they, as well as other survivors of the salamander attack, are taken into quarantine, and Gongdu, after having received a very brief cell phone call from his daughter, realizes that she is still alive somewhere in the sewer. She's not dead, and they all take it upon themselves to break out of quarantine and rescue her. So there are various other sequences within the film. Skipping ahead briefly, they eventually do manage to track her. We do lose one family member along the way, but it's definitely Gongdu's sister who in the end really pulls through and makes the saving attempt towards the creature. Obviously, they slay the creature and pull Gongdu's daughter out of its mouth, and along with her comes another child which she had befriended while they had been left to serve as snacks. So it's definitely a very beautiful ending sequence. We have all of the Molotov cocktails flying, some of them do miss, and we have this very beautiful classical music playing in the background. And to me it's very saddening because me being me, I always root for the creature, and it's just sad the fact that it was this mutated creature. It didn't choose to be this way. It was just trying to live and survive off of instinct, and it's now being punished for taking a girl which it had intended to eat. So obviously I'm not too happy about the defeat of the creature, but it's Gongdu's sister, Briduna, who really does pull through in the end. She gets over her fear of letting go of the quiver. They do make somewhat of a save, but I will leave the ending for you guys to discover, and I will talk to you later.